I don't know about you, but I am really ready for my kids to go back to school. And my kids are 19 and 17 years old. Hey everyone, Happy New Year. Welcome back to the first walk and talk of 2026. Today I want to talk to you about co-regulation. I've talked to you about co-regulation many times before, but it's very important to bring it into play, I believe, going into the new year, because our kids are going to be sitting on about 20 pounds of turkey and stuffing and Nanaimo bars and butter tarts. I just made butter tarts like 5 days ago. I made 30 of them. Kim, thank you for the recipe. And they're gone. Between me and Evie, I think we ate all of them, and yeah, they're gone. They're literally gone. So delicious. But anyways, the point is that we've all kind of had a lazy 2 weeks off, watched a lot of movies, didn't get outside much. You know, your kids were probably gaming more than they normally do. Bedtime was not a thing, at least for teenagers it wasn't. You know, getting them up in the morning to go to school wasn't a thing. Not really structured around when we eat, all of that stuff. And so what that means is that come that first day back to school, our kids are going to struggle. And so what I want to do is I want to talk to you about the yo-yo effect and how we can kind of work on a yo-yo to get our kids back to that place where they're being resilient and able to show some grit and get themselves back into the groove. So what I want you to do is I want you to be more of a helicopter parent that first week back. And it kind of goes against everything I talk about, but I want you to kind of, step in and try to recognize triggers, those antecedent behaviors that you see coming that could cause your kids to melt down or struggle with certain emotions, because they're going to be out of balance. And the key is for you to step in, help them breathe through things, sit down with them on the bench when they're putting their shoes on, start establishing some bedtime routines, making sure you talk about going to bed early, and then, getting in there with them and reading them an extra story, all those good things, right? Because what we want to do is we want to help them work through that discomfort and those big emotions that they're going to be feeling. Keep in mind, I'm also very well aware, because I'm feeling it too, I'm not ready to go back to work. I'd like a few days off without kids and without all the hustle and bustle of what's going to happen when I get back to the school, but that's not the reality. So at the end of the day, let's try to make this as smooth as possible. And so that's what we want to do, is we want to have that co-regulation to get our kids to the place where they can self-regulate. But at the end of the day, what we want to do is we want to focus on reestablishing structures at home, like making sure that we have a bedtime, make sure that we have a morning routine, make sure that kids are prepared the night before, make sure that they're, getting off their technology, all of those little things, right? And by the time we get to Wednesday or Thursday, you're going to do less of that helicopter parenting, less enabling, and you're going to be able to pull back so they can sit in that discomfort. What I need you to realize, though, is that when kids come back to school, our routines and our structures are right there. So there's not going to be a lot of transition where they get to take an hour to get ready and whatnot. My school, for example, they're going to get there Monday. They're walking in to do attendance, and then we're going into our assembly. We're going to talk about being mindful, doing the right thing. We're going to talk about behavior. We're going to set the tone for the week. And they're going to get right back into their structures. They're going to start doing literacy, numeracy, social studies, culture and language, all that good stuff. So what that means is that they're going to be even more cranky and irritable when they get home. Same with you if you've been off for the whole 2 weeks, or if you've only been off for a little bit, you're going to also be feeling that. You're going to be a little bit more cranky and tired. And so we've got a perfect storm of conflict between kids and parents, quite honestly. So just keep that in the back of your mind and do your best to regulate your own emotions. That's where that emotional intelligence comes into play. Be aware of your big emotions and how you're feeling, and don't get into a position where you're fighting fire with fire. Be calm, be patient, all of those good things, right? However, it's only been 2 weeks that they've been off, so those habits should come back quickly and everything should go pretty good, but just be ready for it. The reality is it's still the middle of winter. Days are still short, seasonal depression is still there, and they're going to get frustrated easier. They're going to get angry easier, and it's going to be it's going to be an up and down sort of week for you as you get acclimatized. And your job as a parent is to help them take deep breaths, help them work through that, but mostly stay calm, especially It's only been 2 weeks. It hasn't been 2 months like in the summertime. It's only been 2 weeks. So those routines and those habits that they formed for the past 3 months before Christmas break are still very much intact. Ultimately, balance is key. And knowing that you're going to start your week with being more of a helicopter parent and enabling your kids just so they can work through those emotions with your help, that's the key. To stay calm, be patient, and be balanced with your own emotions. As we get into that second and third week, that's where we need to make sure that we let our kids fail. We make sure that we let them sit in that discomfort and that stress and let them work through it. Don't jump in and try to save the day once you're in that second and third week, because that's what we're going to be doing at the school. At school, we're going to be making sure they work through things by reminding them to breathe, and that's the same thing that you should be doing, because they know if they take those deep breaths, it'll calm their amygdala, as I've taught you in previous videos, and they'll be able to get their thinking in charge and work through some of those difficult things. Now, the other thing as well is your kids are going to come back and probably complain about their principal, me, or their teacher saying that we're being too tough on them. Let them sit in that. Trust us to work through it with them, and they're going to be fine, because we are going to be tough on them, because we are going to make sure that they're getting back into gear, because literacy and numeracy is super important, as well as developing those social emotional skills. So know that that's there. The good thing is that after that couple of weeks, you kind of get through that first week, get through the second week, what you're going to notice is the resilience come back, the grit comes back, the perseverance comes back, and you're going to go back to your kids being in control of their emotions more so, less stressed. Their life is going to normalize, and it's going to feel more consistent than it was during that first week. And by the end of the second week, they should be firing on all cylinders again, and being more resilient and structured and all that good stuff. So, at the end of the day, co-regulation is super important in that first week back of school, because that's how we get them back into the groove. And if we all do our part at the school, you do your part at home, it'll be a smooth transition and everything will go well. On that note, everyone, Happy New Year. Welcome to 2026. Peace out.